Watertown has a work session tonight, meeting not an official city council meeting, but it is a meeting and a quorum in which it will be on the record. And there are a few things that city council members will get an update on. And we have the mayor, Sarah Pierce, here to give us details on that and a couple of other questions that I have about some city business. So thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Happy New Year, first one of the
Happy New Year.
Again, this is on Monday, January 13th. The city work session happening tonight, 7 o'clock. Let's talk about the agenda that's on here, and then I have other questions I want to talk about. So New York State Department of Health expanding some lead initiative items here. You're going to have a presentation about this. What is New York State doing? And looks like they're going to be inspecting some city properties because of concerns over lead. So who does this affect?
So this is something that Governor Hochul proposed back in 2023 during her State of the State. Subsequently, the state legislature passed a law that had to do with reducing lead hazards in homes built before, I believe it's 1980, so that older stock of housing in New York State. The legislation identified communities of concern, mainly a number of upstate communities. I think there are about 25 of them, Watertown being one of them due to the age of our housing stock. So the state passed this law that will essentially, the end goal is to create, from what I'm reading, a database of homes that could have potential, a rental registry of sorts, a database where people can look and see, are there any concerns about lead, what has been done to address those concerns, that sort of thing. So the legislature passed the law. There's been a council created, from what I've read, that will be providing feedback on draft regulations that were put together by the New York State Department of Health. So I believe there's a public comment period, or a period when this council can weigh in on the regulations, and that lasts, I think, until the end of February. And then it's my understanding that they hope to have this in place by the end of this year. So as I mentioned, Watertown was identified as a community of concern. So tonight I think we'll be hearing from the experts about what property owners can potentially anticipate given this new legislation.
And we're talking about lead that could be within paint, not drinking water.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
So it's paint that could be either on the outside or inside of some of the homes. Vacant and blighted homes. That's another one on the list for tonight. A presentation coming from your codes department. What are you expecting with this, and where did this come from?
So this has been, I think, for a number of years, a major concern of residents, a number of blighted and vacant homes that we see across the community, really in every neighborhood. We often hear from people who, they're doing a great job of keeping up their property, but right next door there's a home that's vacant and that has fallen into disrepair, and they can't make contact with the owner in order to have them get it up to code, up to snuff, and really those homes drag the neighborhoods down. So that was one of the things that I had highlighted when I was running for mayor, was to try to address these vacant and blighted homes throughout the community. It's something that the city manager has recognized as a priority coming into his position about a year ago now. So he's been working with the staff departments that would be involved in addressing the issue, namely codes, to see what can we do. So tonight we're going to hopefully hear more about, hey, these are the steps that we can take to start to address this problem in the community. So as I said, I mean, this is something that we hear all the time about. There's property over on Bishop Street that it seems to come up every year, and for whatever reason we can't get in contact with the owner to see that he fixed that property up. And as I said, it really drags these neighborhoods down, these streets that are looking better and better, and you might have that one problem property that just makes the whole neighborhood not look as nice as it could.
So does Watertown, the city, need to get tougher on people that aren't keeping their properties up to a certain level?
I think we probably do, but it's, what's our strategy for doing that? Because a lot of times, you'll have these owners that live across the country, and how do you force them to improve their property? That's something that we have to figure out. How do we do that?
And what is blighted property? It's not just tall grass, right? I mean, is it structural problems?
Structural too, yes. Yep, structural too. And the tall grass, and, no snow removal, that kind of thing.
Is that
neglected?
That's usually a problem, or has been a problem this year. I've heard in many communities where people aren't taking care of their sidewalks after a snowstorm.
Yes.
Is that a problem in the city?
That continues to be an issue. Yes, we work on that continually. The codes office, I think, gets a lot of complaints from people who say, this street or this addressed as another sidewalk cleared, and we tried to get on it as quickly as possible because really it's a safety hazard for people who are walking, students walking to school, so it's important to keep those sidewalks clear.
Snowtown USA going to start up here soon, and first time in a couple of years that I can remember where the temperatures are going to pretty much cooperate, and possibly everything will be able to happen, from the outdoor skating to a bunch of the snow sculpting. So do you have a rundown of events, or at least a timeline, or what are some of the highlights of Snowtown USA?
So I don't have memorized specifically a day-by-day schedule, but the highlights certainly are the park circle is going to be frozen for people to skate on, and I believe we're going to try to do a ribbon cutting for that on January 20th. We're going to have the snow sculpting again. There's going to be some indoor activities, of course, as well, kickball tournament. So there's a long list of activities. It's a great way for families to kind of break up the winter, get out of that cabin fever mode. So I would encourage people to go on to the Snowtown USA Facebook page, Snowtown USA website, and they've got a great listing of all the different activities they'll be doing.
All right, so a couple of questions here regarding other city business. The money that Councilmember Cliff Olney is bringing in for his defense fund in the ethics question or ethics hearing that is coming up, he wants to hire a lawyer, and he thinks the city should represent him on one side, but the city has said no. So he's raising money, and to this point, that list of donors is private. Mr. Olney doesn't feel that should be made public. People donated and they thought that their name wouldn't be released. They want to be anonymous in that. But you have a problem with that. The city charter also says something, but you have a problem with keeping that information quiet. You think that should be disclosed. Why do you feel that that's important?
I think the charter is pretty clear. It says that you cannot accept a gift of over $75. And I think that when you're an elected official, the privacy kind of goes out the window. Your constituents have a right to know who your donors are, whether that be to a legal defense fund or to a campaign. They have a right to know, who has taken an interest in seeing you defended. And I mean, I'm speaking, I guess, comparatively to when I was in the state Senate. I worked for the state Senate for over 10 years, and it was a similar sort of code of ethics where you had to disclose any kind of, or you couldn't accept gifts over a certain amount. So I can remember frequently our office would receive gifts, we'd have to send them right back, because that's the expectation when you're a public official, that you can't be, I would say, influenced by people who might have an interest in seeing something happen or not happen. So I think that in the interest of transparency, all council members should be abiding to the city code, city charter.
And so if this is a violation of the charter and you see it as such, do you plan on filing anything with another ethics complaint? Not that you did the first one, but another ethics complaint in which someone would make the case that Mr. Olney is not following the charter by not disclosing this information. Do you plan on doing that, or somebody?
It's nothing that I have plans to do at this point in time, but I wouldn't necessarily rule it out in the future. Again, I think we all have a responsibility as council members to be transparent, and if somebody is writing you a check for $5,000, as I believe Mr. Olney said he got a $5,000 check from somebody, I think the public has a right to know who has an interest in seeing this person defended. For me, it's just a matter of transparency. When you're an elected official, the constituents have a right to know. I mean, with my own, kind of drawing back on my own experience, not only with the Senate, but just with campaigning, you have to report everything over $100 so the public can get a clear view of who's supporting you. They might want to know why somebody's supporting you. So it's important to be transparent, I think.
When we talk about January for the city of Watertown, it starts out a new calendar year, but it's halfway through the fiscal year. Watertown works from a July to June fiscal calendar. We're coming up on budgets. I'm sure that your city manager is working on that now, because the numbers, crunching those numbers to keep anything stable for the taxpayer, I think is going to be extremely challenging. Mm-hmm. It was last year. Some would say that City Council kicked the can down the road, that really some major changes weren't made last year in order to keep a major tax hike from happening in this upcoming budget. What are you bracing for?
I'm essentially bracing for the same thing that we went through last year. I mean, when we started, there was a proposed tax increase of about 19%. We got it down to single digits. That was at least my goal. And I know that it was a difficult process. If anybody watched our work sessions, it was going line by line through the budget and finding even the smallest savings that could get us to that single digit number. So again, this year, I anticipate that we will have much the same, and I know that it's something that the city manager has been working. I would say after we pass the last budget, it kind of starts the clock on the next budget's obviously coming up. The work starts then to see, how can we put together our spending plan in the most efficient way that, doesn't put too much burden on the taxpayers, that sort of thing. So I know the city manager's been working actively with the department heads on that throughout the year. Then it obviously will be up to the council to review the budget and see where changes could be made. And I know that there's been a lot of discussion about major changes being made, these big ticket items that cost us a lot of money, and I think that everything's on the table when we sit down.
If I remember correctly, when you were running for mayor and I had the debate between yourself and Councilmember Lisa Ruggiero, we talked about how by 2026, 2027, the update from then City Manager Ken Mix and continued by the current City Manager, the prediction was that by that time, the city really was going to be out of savings and would be running a deficit. And you could argue that after the last budget, not much of that changed. The numbers really didn't change that much. I mean, something major has to happen with the city's budget.
Absolutely. And I think, again, that boils down to you're probably going to have to see some major changes. You're going to have to differentiate between these are our needs and these are our wants. And it's going to probably be pretty bare bones, if we want to stay financially solvent here.
So the tax hikes are on the table. And even on the other side, whether it's cutting services and such. I mean, any conversations of what could be cut, or is it too early?
Probably too early. I mean, we've obviously had kind of the offhanded mentions over the course of the past few months of the different things that you look at that aren't necessarily essential to city operations, whether that be the zoo, the golf course, those sorts of things. So again, I think everything is going to be on the table. And for me, I kind of always has been needs versus wants. And, what do you want? Recreation, yes, it's great to have those sorts of things, but needs are really what keep the city humming day to day. It's, your streets, your trash pickup, your water, all of those essential services. And I've been pretty good, I think, of maintaining that those things need to be protected first before we spend on any other things that aren't essential to day-to-day life.
If you do golf course or zoo, really it doesn't solve your problem.
No, not entirely, no.
It's taxes, whether they go up, and it's people. It's the people that you employ. But if you're doing one last question, if you think about golf course, the golf course compared to the arena, they're both losing money, but the arena loses more per year.
Correct.
$500,000, I think, is what it is. The golf course came in at maybe losing $260, I think is right
Correct.
About where that was.
Yep.
So does the arena come first when you look at cutting recreation?
I think the arena's different because, look at the structure itself. It's different in the way that it's used day in and day out by community members, whether it's for skating, hockey, events. So I think, yes, you have to look at, as I said, the needs versus the wants, but there also has to be, in a cost-effective way, an opportunity to provide some kind of services or amenities to residents. And I think when you look at an arena versus a golf course, you have an arena that's used 365 days a year. You have a golf course that's used a couple months out of the year. Not that I'm advocating to close the golf course by any means, but I think that those sort of factors would need to play into any kind of decision making.
All right. That is our time. Thank you for the conversation.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you for watching.